So they started insisting on taking what they call as high resolution full slide images. I want to see the whole slide so that it looks to me real, lifelike, so that I can make a better diagnosis. So what has happened as a result of that, that images as large as 15 gigabytes are being now pushed to a cloud-based archive. So you can imagine, right? So the kind of plight that causes to somebody who's trying to design a cloud archive. Then, of course, increase in sheer volume of data. So Obamacare, all of us have heard. I think it's called Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. So this is bringing a lot of people into the umbrella of healthcare, and so images, the amount of radiological exams that are going to happen are going to increase. So as per what analysts say, the amount of healthcare data is expected to triple in next 3 years. So that means if you are building a cloud-based archive, you need to account for this. You need to account for the explosion that's going to happen in this. Then there are some other very interesting things. Genomics is a new field, it's upcoming now. All of a sudden people want to keep information about, so already people have started keeping samples of their bone marrows, and maybe very soon people might want to keep information about any genetic disorders that they have, stuff like that. So genomics, we haven't really seen genomics in action yet, but it's very soon going to become a reality. And genomics again has I think the smallest known human genome mapping still occupies 3.2 GB or something. But probably that's not 100% of genome or whatever. So basically again you're talking about gigabytes of data. It's purely in technical terms. So then while you're looking at all this, there are a whole lot of standards being thrown out. XL7 is very active, so they have a new standard called pronounced as FHIR. There is this edge data. So basically already there is a mind-boggling array of standards, and now you have all of a sudden some new standards that you need to account for. So, so probably one more few last interesting bits about this archive. So what happens is that you might build an archive, and you might address all these problems, and you might allow hospitals to connect to you and store that information. But then we already talked about integrating the health enterprise, which is a good initiative which allows multiple healthcare providers to talk to each other, their IT systems to talk to each other. So they have these various profiles which dictate or allow IT systems to talk to each other in a more structured way, and they have defined some profiles. So very interesting amongst them, especially from a archive perspective, is cross-enterprise document sharing, which essentially defines certain roles, right? It defines a document source, which is a source of document, and metadata. So we already talked of modalities, which are a source of document. Then the document repository. So your PACS, for example, is a document repository, or the cloud-based archive that DCCA is a document repository. Then of course, because it's all about the patient and the care that patient gets, there's a source of patient identity that's defined. Most interesting part is the registry. What happens is, this is the centerpiece of the XDS profile, which allows any document that gets stored in a repository, as far as you have registered it into a central registry, what happens is any consumer who wants to get the document can get it agnostic of which registry it sits in. Right? So what was the big success of service-oriented architecture, or COM, DICOM, or whatever for that matter, is that regardless of where your end service is delivered from, as far as you can go to a UDDI registry, you can get to know where the service endpoint is. So basically anything that is kind of abstracted out in such a way. So what XDS profile has done for healthcare data is that now you can have healthcare data sitting across multiple repositories in multiple hospitals. So they have this concept, notion of an affinity domain, where more than one hospitals say, okay, we'll collaborate, so that healthcare information can be freely shared amongst ourselves. So, so this is all great, the question is that if you are actually going to build a cloud archive, then you actually implement a registry so that then you will allow people to search information sitting in your cloud archive using the IHE transactions which IHE defines. So now you become standards compliant. Okay, so can I remember, we are just scratching the surface, but I just want to give you a perspective that if you are actually taking the trouble of creating a cloud-based archive, then you better do all this so that it becomes effective. And then, of course, paramount of all this, very fundamental, is information protection. So we already talked of HIPAA, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, which is talked about quite a lot. There is this notion of personally identifiable health information, or electronic form of it, EPHI. So HIPAA defines what they call as technical safeguards in order to protect personally identifiable health information, so that it either doesn't fall in wrong hands, or even if it falls in wrong hands, people can't do much about it. So there is a notion of what they call a safe harbor, as far as you have used strong encryption to protect your personally identifiable health information, it should not fall in wrong hands. So apart from very well known, I talked about HIPAA, there are lots of other profiles, like there is this ACNA, or Audit Trail and Node Authentication, which talks about that if you are sharing health information with a node, you should positively identify it. Or there is enterprise user authentication and XUA, cross enterprise user authentication, which talks about how you authenticate users, end users who are going to view the information. So what happens from a very technology perspective is all this. So if you look at ACNA, it would just boil down to using server and client certificates, or cross enterprise user authentication, or other EUA uses Kerberos, or it supports use of Kerberos. XUA supports identity federation by use of SAML. So basically, building blocks of your regular run-of-the-mill IT can be used, as far as you know, in perspective of how they really map to what you need to do from information protection perspective in the healthcare industry. So now I guess I've set the ground in terms of what are those expectations from a healthcare archive and how it will build. So now I'll let Antony talk to you about how actually it could be done, if at all.
He already spoke about what are the standards in healthcare and what are the challenges healthcare faces. Now let's talk about how do we map this to a technical architecture, right? So these are the domain drivers. Some of them already Yogesh already talked about it. So I'll just quickly take a minute to just quickly go over it. So I mean, especially people from non-healthcare background, if you are lost because of too many standards and things like that, what Yogesh mentioned. If you understand this slide, then you actually get the gist of things what we are trying to say. So the first thing what Yogesh mentioned is the growing size of imaging data. So imagine a hospital, I mean, everything is digitized these days. X-rays, the scanned images and everything. Everything is digitized these days. And the size of the image, and like Yogesh mentioned, the size of the image is continuously keep on increasing. So just think about the IT cost and a healthcare entity needs to spend, for managing this kind of, this sheer size of image which grows like periodically. So. I mean, what the survey says, around 20% of healthcare IT spending is spent on managing this imaging, infrastructure. So, so the other thing is the exploding number of images, like Yogesh mentioned, genomics, and a lot of new things are coming, and so a lot of new images are getting added, and then support multiple sources. See, this is a very key thing, especially which has a lot of focus in US. That's because, see, suppose you are covered under a specific entity, and if you are going out of station, and you get sick and you go to another hospital there, how does that physician will get your history of medical records or your drug history, whether you are allergic to something? you basically, right now there is no way you can get that in India. In US, even if they are storing everything digitally, but still, because of this interoperability issues, like Yogesh mentioned, DICOM has, people have customized it with thousands of flavors of DICOM. So, I mean, it's not very interoperable, but that's why, the standards like what Yogesh mentioned, IHE and things like that, which is coming into existence. So I'll talk about that. So quality of care. So obviously, if you are able to, see your record, if you go to a different country and then still you are able to access your healthcare record, I mean, you can obviously get, better care, right? And similarly, the cost and things like that. So these are the domain drivers, specific, and most of them are very specific to healthcare. So now, as we discussed, the archive is the critical piece. It's a central piece. You cannot store everything in the hospital and keep on increasing the hardware and storage and processing and things like that. So you have to, and you cannot discard the images because at least for 50 years, at least for 50 to 70 years, you have to store this image, right? So you have to keep it in the long time archive. And so based on this, whatever domain drivers what we discussed here, these are some of the archive characteristics what we need. I will talk about it when we actually do the mapping. So now, how do we map this? And what are the technology elements? Healthcare standards we need to achieve this. So these are the domain drivers. These are the archive characteristics you need for an image archive, and and these are some of the technology elements. And let's see how we can map this. Okay, so as I said, I'll talk a little bit about DCCA, the product which we are working on. So what happens in DCCA is, what we recommend is we should have a remote cache, a cloud-based cache. Also, we should have a local cache, so that basically for performance reasons and also to build some intelligence and stuff like that, you need to have a local cache and a remote cache. But the life cycle of the image which lives in the local cache is finite, because once it crosses a certain period of time which is configurable based on certain rules, it gets archived into the long-term archive. And whenever you need it, you can actually fetch it back to the local archive, right? So and you can really build some intelligence around it. Yogesh was talking about HL7. When a patient gets admitted, immediately that's an event, right, which triggers that okay, this patient is coming, the physician might need his records. So we will immediately look in the local archive and see whether the images are available in the local archive. If it is there, yeah, I mean we are all set. The physician needs it. Otherwise, we can prefetch it. Before even the physician needs it, we can actually prefetch it from the remote archive. So, for the image size, the domain issue what we're talking about, some of the things what we need is, we need to have on-demand capabilities, especially on the cloud side. Like we are a cloud provider. When a new hospital or any new vendor comes and do business with us, right? We need to be able to dynamically scale. On a click of a button, I should be able to provision new instances of servers, new storage, and network computing power and things like that. It should happen on the fly. It should be automated and it should happen dynamically. So we need the on-demand capabilities, and that's why we have built an infrastructure as service kind of thing, which can be which is dynamically scalable. And we considered, if you're not familiar about cloud OS, I'm talking about OpenStack or CloudStack or Eucalyptus and things like that. So that is something we need. So if you want to do, and also, right, we are talking about objects which can run into GBs. So we need a typical file system storage won't really help. We need, object storage or distributed FS. Object storage, for example, like we have something like OpenStack Swift or Ceph. So those are some examples of object storage, and we have distributed file system like LusterFS and things like that. Then if you want to do parallel processing, sometimes when you deal with this size of data, you may have to chunk the data, or you may have to do some kind of streaming and things like that, because it's not really you cannot download, especially with the kind of bandwidth what we have, you cannot download a 15 GB data in even in a few minutes, right? So we may have to do some parallel processing and things like that. So for that we can use some of this MapReduce technologies. So I mean, I'm not going to talk about each of this point, but I'll talk about whatever is relevant, right? So then and of course we need to do some asynchronous processing, because to have a better performance, I mean when a physician is waiting, I mean when somebody uploads an image, we have to immediately respond to that that particular system. And then we can do a lot of things parallelly, behind the scenes, we can extract some metadata out of it, and then, we can do some analytics and things like that, right? So that has to happen asynchronously, and, and for that we need to have a messaging infrastructure. We are using RabbitMQ for that. Then, I talked about the case wherein, when somebody goes to a different network, how does he get this, how does another hospital get the data of this particular patient, who actually is covered under a different entity. So, for that, that's why, the IHE, the Integrated Health, Enterprise, the IHE profiles came into picture, and, they have defined a patient-centric data model. So, if you are adhering to IHE profile, then, you can make it happen. You can actually make it happen. So, it's very important, for us to adhere to all these standards. Apart from IHE, you have, like we mentioned, like we have DICOM, HL7, and of course, we have to support, REST and SOAP and things like that. Now, for the quality of the care, like I mentioned, we do some intelligent prefetching. When we get an HL7 message, we prefetch the complete history records, history of the record of the patient. We will do the prefetching. So for that, we need to have. See, the problem is, all the system which gives you all these images, there's no defined schema for it, right? So that's why we take advantage of NoSQL solutions, so that you can have a flexible schema, and it can scale. I mean, the reason, one of the reasons why NoSQL itself came into existence is because of the scalability it can provide, right? So I mean, so these are the basic things. If you want to, I mean, you would have heard this for a whole day. Like if you want to, I mean, the reason why the cloud came into existence is to cut down the cost, because it's a multi-tenant cloud, so different. So you're basically sharing the resources and and things like that. The infrastructure itself is shared, right? So the cost will obviously come down, and if the infrastructure cost comes down, then you can give the care at a cheaper rate, right? Then regulatory compliance, right? So again, HIPAA and I mean as we mentioned, the healthcare data is highly sensitive. So you have to make sure that so that's why we have HIPAA privacy rules and things like that. So you have to make sure that the data, I mean, one patient's data is not able to be seen by the other patient, or even some other physician without his permission. So there are stringent regulations for that. So whatever archive solution you are building, you have to make sure that you're HIPAA compliant, you're IHE compliant, you support DICOM, you support HL7, you support REST, you support SOAP, and things like that. So I mean, so those are some of the challenges what we have to deal with when we are building, an archive solution or a healthcare, a cloud. Of course, apart from that, we keep logging on the events, and we keep analyzing the events to find out, any kind of malware is happening and things like that. So, in business agility, we know that. Right? I mean, if you use service-oriented architecture, and so I mean, and if you follow agile process and things like that, we can be agile and we can release, respond to the business needs. So here, this is the last slide. So basically here, I just want to quickly introduce about the DCCA product itself, and what are some of the benefits what we provide, before concluding this. So Yogesh talked about PACS, right? So there are different modalities. Modalities are nothing but devices, scanning device, X-ray machine, and things like that. All the data which these modalities produce, it gets stored in PACS. And then this is the local cache which I was talking about, right? So we have a local cache and we have a remote cache. So and the PACS talks to the local cache via DICOM, and then the hospital doesn't even know when that actually gets archived into the remote cloud, because that is all configured based on rules. So so from an hospital perspective, they're always talking to the local archive and they think that all the data is actually available here. But what is actually happening behind the scenes is we are fetching it from the from the cloud, especially if the caching, the purge, if the data is purged from here. So that is one example, and here we have this concept of vendor neutral archive. Because of this DICOM is implemented in 1,000 ways, like Yogesh mentioned. So we have this another standard, and we have another entity called vendor neutral archive, which also talks to this cloud. So so the only thing which I am trying to say here is so we can have situations where you don't have a local cache, you are talking directly to the cloud itself. But what we recommend is this one because of the performance.